Good afternoon, and welcome to Ask an Industry Leader, a webinar series hosted by Women in Healthcare IT. My name is Lisa Grissom, and I'm a Vice President and Associate CIO at Stanford Medicine Children's Health and Board President of WIT. I'm delighted to be with you today for what I know will be a timely, practical, and energizing conversation on AI in action, tools and techniques to work smarter and faster. Artificial intelligence is starting to reshape how we work, lead, communicate, analyze information, and solve problems. In healthcare IT especially, we are seeing AI move from concept to everyday practice, helping leaders and teams streamline workflows, improve decision-making, spark innovation, and create more capacity for the work that matters most. Today's conversation is intended to be a practical, real-world applications discussion. We have the privilege of hearing from 4 accomplished healthcare IT leaders who will share how they're using AI in their own day-to-day work, the tools they rely on, the habits they are building, and the opportunities they see, and the lessons they have learned along the way. As we begin, I encourage you to listen for ideas you can immediately apply to your own role. Whether you are just beginning to explore AI or are already using it regularly, my hope is that you will leave today with practical techniques, fresh inspiration, and a greater confidence in how AI can help you work smarter, faster, and more intentionally. We'll leave time at the end of the conversation for questions. So as we go through our discussion, please feel free to add your questions or comments into the Q&A. With that, I am honored to introduce our panelists and begin today's discussion. Can each of you please start by introducing yourself, your role and your organization, how long you've been with your current organization, and one word you would use to describe AI. Mandeep, let's begin with you.
Thank you, Lisa, and hello, everyone. Really nice to be here. My name is Mandeep. I have what they call a portfolio career. I'm a consultant at a private company. I'm a board member at a not-for-profit company, and I'm a visiting professor at a university. The entirety of my work is on accelerating the use of AI in healthcare. My career has come full circle. I got my degree in AI back in the 80s. Yes, 80s. It was in what is now called traditional AI. And my first 2 jobs were in AI, building expert systems for manufacturing and supporting AI tools and languages, which at the time were Logo and Prolog and Lisp. And then I moved into healthcare, and where I've been working for the last 20 years. The first 10 were supporting healthcare technology for payers, health insurers, and the latter 10 was supporting, again, healthcare technology for providers, including small clinics that were acquired by private equity companies. In 2020, during the height of COVID, a friend of mine who is a professor at a university and teaches healthcare management invited me to give a webinar. If you remember, we were all remote at the time, students, professors, everyone. So I went back and created a webinar on how AI was reshaping modern healthcare. And this was 2020, pre-ChatGPT, so I was still talking about traditional AI. And then in 2022, when ChatGPT hit the market, of course, we now had generative AI as well. And so I incorporated that into my talks as well as into my work in healthcare IT. And now, of course, we have agentic AI as well. So it's traditional AI, generative AI, agentic AI, and the work in healthcare for me continues. So what I like to tell my clients, my friends, and my colleagues is that the technology, as well as we are both finally in our prime. I look forward to this afternoon's discussion and Q&A.
Thank you, Mandeep. And your one word, or I think maybe a phrase that would describes AI to you.
And that's what I said. We are in our prime. The technology and I, yes.
Excellent. Okay, let's go to you, Guy.
Yes, good afternoon, good morning, everyone, depending on where you are in the country. My name is Guy Tennyson. I am the VP of Digital Patient Experience with a consulting firm group called Elite Groups. I've been with Elite Groups for 2 years, and I run the contact center with Elite Groups, as well as working with our clients on how to expand their patient portals, MyChart and Epic. I have been in healthcare IT for 26 years and really enjoying the work that I'm doing around the AI. My one word that describes my experience is really astonishment. Thanks, Lisa.
Great. Donna, let's go to you. Donna, you're on mute.
You know, we practice going off mute. I apparently was not paying attention.
Yes,
And I thought, I'll be the one that does it. I can do it. Thank you. And I'm excited to be here, especially with the panelists and then everybody that's joining the call. I'm Donna Reed. I am Chief Growth Officer for a company called Health Plans AI. I joined that company earlier this year. It's a sister company to Catalyst Solutions, which is a 3-decade-old company, which that time frame kind of matches my career to a certain extent from a time frame perspective. And I have always had either a role inside of health plan, running large-scale operations, projects, platform migrations, conversions, those types of things, or working in true blue tech companies. So excited that I'm in a company that's marrying all of that experience together because we focus primarily on all things AI and what it can do to accelerate all of the innovation, accelerate admin simplification of the like that all health plans deal with today. When I think about AI, it's real easy to come up with one word: impactful.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And last but not least, let's go to you, Bill.
Great. Hello, all. I'm Bill Leander, the Chief Product Officer for going into my 3rd year now with SureTest, which offers fully managed test automation solutions for EHRs, ERPs, etc. And part of my role at SureTest is to infuse AI into our core offerings, but also to leverage it to assist all of us in the management team and the entire organization as we can. So I'm excited about sharing some of the things we've done on that front with you. And as I think about AI and spent not quite as long as some folks, but maybe 8 years or so in it, I think of pragmatic, because as I keep telling my product team at SureTest, we need to operationalize it toward buying back extra capacity or time and accelerating decision cycles and results. So I try and come at it from a very pragmatic approach, and I'm sure as we go through our discussion together, that will become pretty apparent. So excited to be here.
Great. Thank you very much to all of you. I'm excited about this conversation and thought that we would start here with kind of getting a temperature of our attendees today and see how you all are feeling about your use of AI in your day-to-day work. So can you all take a moment and go to the Q&A section and answer this question? How often do you use AI in your day-to-day work, and what challenges do you have with it? So go ahead and put your responses there in the Q&A. Not seeing anything come in. Are you, MJ? Oh, here we go. Daily. Oh, and prompt engineering is a challenge. Yes, that takes a lot of practice for sure. It is everywhere. The challenge is that it is everywhere. Totally get that. Yes. And another one, using it daily, challenges with work restrictions like regs, feeling like it's impeding my progress to leverage AI more quickly. Yep, get that as well. Another one, using AI daily, challenges with getting right prompts from the start. Yep, so have a little bit of a theme going on there related to prompts. I'd like to explore additional functions to be more efficient. Yes, and we should be able to hit on some of these things today. Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started then with our discussion. Let's start with having each of our panelists describe your typical week. What AI tools do you use and what do you use them for? So Mandeep, we'll start with you again.
Sure. So I am, as folks mentioned when you polled them, AI is everywhere. And I consider myself an AI-powered human being. And we cannot avoid it, whether you open Google or Siri or your email, AI is trying to do something for you. So whether I do it intentionally or not, I use AI daily, hourly. For my work, I use it to, like I said, I'm a consultant, so I will use it to draft a proposal. I will use it to draft a change management roadmap, so to speak. So depending on what is going on in my work, I will use it to do research or to draft. Note, I use the word draft, so I'm not using it for the final presentation or anything. I begin there with a draft telling AI what I'm trying to achieve, what the goals are, and continuing to iterate till I get what I think is a presentable to me, satisfactory to me answer to the questions I was asking. So I use it on a work on a daily basis. I use it personally as well on a daily basis to, get a summarized version of the news or what's going on in AI in particular. And as we all know, there is so much going on in AI, it's hard to keep up. So trying to do that at a personal level. So as I said, I use it all the time for everything that I do. I typically start there and then refine it as I go along.
Great. Guy, do you want to take us through your week?
Yeah, absolutely. AI usage is my daily usage. I use it both, Copilot and Claude on a daily basis, kind of like Mandeep was saying, not to complete it, but to draft. We call it an email refinement, taking an email, running it through there, refining it based on the type of person or level leaders that we're emailing to. I also use it to take my meeting notes and do my minutes, and then analyze any spreadsheets and data that I have with there, and also create PowerPoint drafts and help with creating a statement of works. I also oversee our contact center at Elite Group. So we partner with TalkDesk as our CCAS system, our contact center solution. And we've incorporated a lot of their AI for our agents, which includes helping pop up knowledge bases based on the conversation that's taken place rather than having to go out to SharePoint site and review them. It takes the notes so the agents can focus on the call and not worry about the notes. And then also that helps with the after call work, and it's reduced our after call work by 50%, which allows our agents to get back on a call quicker with our next callers. Also selects the auto dispositions, and we're working, and Mandeep mentioned agentic AI, we're working with TalkDesk to implement agentic AI, and then also for auto language translation. So a patient can chat and it will in their native language, and it will automatically translate it into our agent's language and back and forth. So we're using AI in a lot of different areas here at Elite Groups.
Great, thank you. I love that auto language translation. That's really powerful. That's amazing, especially in healthcare. That's wonderful to be able to have that health equity lens that we do. Donna, let's go to you.
Yeah, and like all the answers, right, daily, if not hourly, and in many different ways, right? I think part of your question was, what do you use? And I use a couple of them very regularly, and I play with others, right, depending on what I'm looking for. For example, real deep analysis, venturing over to Claude. I have an extremely well-trained assistant that knows my voice, that knows, my mannerism, how I talk, what I'm after. And I think that's key, right? Training is very important. And I use ChatGPT a lot for that. And then there's the other, the fun, the co-pilot, create this picture type of thing. There's some really fun art things you can do. I mean, we do sorts of silly things. I haven't quite converted my dog into any art yet, but there's a lot of great stuff you can do there. And I think too, there's fear in AI, right? So we also do try to, in all seriousness, have fun, but use it technically for what we're doing daily. We've done things like create avatars for our team and put our team picture together. But what I typically use it for at its simplest form is condense my emails, tell me which ones are urgent, take all of these great articles that are floating in the universe that I can't make the time to read line by line, but summarize them, tell me which ones are going to be salient to some of the projects we're working on. And again, that's prompting, right? Here's what I'm really looking for. Find this for me, make it relevant. And then at the complex level, from a deep analytic perspective, I'm now toying around with creating multi-agents and multi-personas. So for example, if I'm in there and I've got to speak to a board, I want to know what the CFO is going to challenge me on. I want to know what the COO is thinking of this health plan, and maybe the CTO or CDO, what's on his buzzwords and what's, incorporating all of those types of things. And I found from using that type of methodology in my prompting, and again, it's not my end. I think that's an important thing that everybody check your work, right? But it gives you that foundation on springboard off this, right? And make it your own. So I would say I use it. I try not to overuse it, but checking the work and really developing personas and voice is very important for the line of work that my team does, being that we're in account management, growth, and speaking to everybody that will talk to us in the universe. So great tools.
Yeah, great. Fabulous, Donna. Thank you for sharing that. Bill, let's hear from you.
Great. Well, I'll try not to be too redundant because it's clear a lot of us use it for the same high value use cases. So I'll try and focus on a few use cases, and maybe I'll emphasize more some of the lessons that I've learned as we've gone through this process. So I use AI all through the day. Too much, maybe. I mean, all through the day. So I have it in three sort of phases, if you will. First is sort of my morning perspective. So my morning perspective is before I go jumping into a litany of calls and meetings, I want to use AI, and I do every day, to say, okay, based on my overarching goals and priorities, what are today's priorities? If I have to do 2 or 3 things, what's most important today? Some of it could be related to the meeting, some of it could be related to content creation, etc. But I have found, as subtle as that sounds, that's incredibly helpful, or I get lost going from back-to-back meetings, and I'm not able at the end of the day say, you were going to do X, Y, and Z, did you do it? And AI is extremely powerful in that for me. And in fact, it would help me with advanced preparation too, as Donna said. I want to know what I'm likely to encounter from the different internal people, and based on what I'm presenting, a product strategy, a product roadmap. And certainly if I'm outside, I want to know what their social profile looks like, et cetera. Because I'll tell you in a minute that I think context is king with AI. Personalization is definitely Prince. And you'll hear more about that in a moment from me. So my morning ritual is to spend 15 minutes. We've got it all created. I may make some tweaks here or there on the specifics, but basically to say, here's your dashboard for the day, Bill. And then all through the day I use it. And Guy mentioned taking meeting notes, etc. But I've tried to push it it's not perfect, to the next level where after a meeting, it actually comes forward and says, these are the follow-up meetings you should have. Here's who should be invited. Here's the agenda you should have on this. Now, I don't send those out till I review them. You've heard that theme across all of us right here. But I've really found that micro PMO automation that can handle the fluidity of how things go in the day, and not just my meetings, but the other meetings that are going on in the organization, right? And sort of pull that together. That meeting intelligence and planning has been really helpful for me. It makes it so much easier. And of course, like everyone has said, I'm big on the knowledge repository, my presentations, my documents, my reports, my strategies, my plans. And after every day, I will get an AI generated recommendation on which need to be updated, how and in what format. And then they make those updates. And of course, again, consistently, I've checked them out. And really so that's sort of like the AI as an EA, but the highest value for me is more as like a strategic partner. Donna was hitting quite a bit on this, which is I have to create product strategies. I have to create product roadmaps, release plans, contextual strategic documents in which these various products fit. And I find that content creation fantastic. But the real value I find and leverage very highly is stress testing those. Forcing AI to tell me what are the weaknesses, what are the strengths, what would the CFO say, what would the COO say, what's going to work well here, what assumptions am I making, et cetera, et cetera. So I really force it, not just sort of to help draft it out, but to critique it, to be my worst audience, if you will. And that's worked really, really well. So I use a lot of the same tools, right? I'm a big Claude guy. I've definitely used GPT. I'm trying to gradually move away from prompt engineering, using things like, Claude Code and other scripting services and tools. Everybody uses Copilot. I use Fathom for my meeting intelligence. I find that the most powerful tool to do some of the things we talked about, in Notion, if you will, for my dashboard that can pull this information back on, and Motion mostly for my time management side. But I've learned 3 really good lessons. Now, we could talk a long time. I mean, there's the cybersecurity issues associated with AI. There's the token and cost issues associated with it. There's the what you can give access to and acceptable use policies. I'm going to touch none of those things. So for me, where my curve bent in the right direction a few years ago was when I realized that consistency was so much more important than sophistication. I just had to get started. It might be small. I had to just do it every dang day. Just keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it, train it up. And that was so important to me, because at first I made the mistake, and I've made every mistake you can make, and tried to bite off way too much too complicated. And it's sort of more evolved more gradually. So I would definitely say consistency is over sophistication. I'd also say context is more important than prompt engineering, which I know is blasphemy, right? Typically but what I did to accelerate getting what I needed that works like a charm, and even that takes some honing, is whenever I ask for something and provide all the context I can, go look at these comms, go look at these documents, I always say, before you answer me, you ask me 3 to 5 clarifying questions so I can be sure you understand what I want. And it's amazing the questions that Claude will ask you. And sometimes it's simple, the tone, the expected audience. And sometimes it's much more thought-provoking. But as I do that, I have found that sort of clarifying question trick really, really helpful. And of course, everyone said my third one, which is never trusted blindly. You never outsource your critical thinking. You never outsource your judgment, etc. So long and the short of it is I've worked really hard to develop things that make me more efficient, more productive, help me make better decisions. And honestly, as a CPO, make me able to look back and say, am I doing all the right things in the right ways? And are we getting there? So I could never have done all that without AI. So I hope y'all are doing some of those things too.
Great. Thank you, Bill. That's amazing. One of the struggles that I find, and some of the things that were highlighted in the Q&A, is there are a couple things. There's so many features out there. There's so many tools, and then there's so many features. And it's growing and evolving and changing so fast. And I remember I went to a Copilot training, and I walked out of the Copilot training and I thought, okay, now I need Copilot training. I mean, it was just, I was overwhelmed. I mean, it wasn't the training itself. The training was great, but it was this flyby of not all of the things, but some of the things that Copilot could be used for. And like I said, I was overwhelmed when I came out of it. So I would love to hear from you. Like, how did you all get started with using these tools? Mandeep, you spoke to some of this already, but how do you keep abreast of all of the new features coming out? What kind of training did you get? Did you take training regularly? Just, how do you keep up to date on all this? And then any kind of advice that you have in this whole space for those, myself and others on this call. So Mandeep, would you like to comment?
Sure, Lisa. And training is an ongoing and a daily thing. As we all know, it is moving so very rapidly that you have to keep abreast of it. And that's what we are using AI for as well, as to get what's new in Fable, what's new in Mythos, so on and so forth. But I started with experimenting. We all have access to Copilot, those of us who use Microsoft. So Copilot was there, so it was easy to use. ChatGPT was the first, so I've done a lot of experimentation with ChatGPT. What that helped with was getting the fear out of the way. I hadn't broken anything. I hadn't made any major mistakes. And so of course, you have to be careful not to put your data in a public LLM and so forth. So if you can avoid putting your passwords or contact list or something, experiment with little things like recipes and travel plans and so forth. That'll help, certainly. I've taken a lot of courses at Coursera, for instance. That's a cheap, efficient way to take courses. But as Lisa said, it's not theory. You kind of have to get your hands dirty. You have to try and experiment and be able to demonstrate what you're trying to do. As has been mentioned, there's so much going on. I read all kinds of podcasts that come out. I read papers. I belong to professional organizations that are teaching AI courses, or may not be courses, but more how to apply AI in your day-to-day world, with how to overcome employee resistance, how to change management, how do you measure ROI with AI? So it's all of those questions we thought we knew how to work, but AI has added another dimension related to our workflows, related to our workforce, related to measuring impact. So it's staying on top of it, asking a lot of questions. I think we shouldn't be afraid of asking questions. We're all in the same boat. This has hit us all at the same time. Even though I was trained in traditional AI many moons ago, but this form of AI has hit us all at the same time. So we learn from each other, we take courses, we attend webinars, seminars like these, and continue to learn. And we cannot stop learning, because it is changing, it is evolving rapidly, daily, and we have to keep abreast of it, whichever way works for us, whether through courses or talking to people, attending seminars, important to do. And I encourage everyone to keep experimenting and not delay it.
Great advice. Guy, any thoughts, advice you would have for our listeners?
Yeah, absolutely. And Mandeep kind of mentioned this earlier. AI has been around for years. A lot of people think it's just since 2022, and ChatGPT was really released to the general public. But it's been around. Video games, thinking of Atari 2600 for those that go back into the 80s and 90s. It's been around for years. So you also, when you have conversations with friends, you go on your phone and you see something on your phone, that conversation you have with a friend that you didn't put in your phone. It's listening to you. Those that are using Google and Gemini and stuff, it's all around us, just like it's mentioned. But where I really got into AI was just in the last few years with the contact center, working and getting those implemented as the features that I talked about in my previous part of the discussion. Also, working with elite groups, they really want us to focus on AI. How can we use AI in the world? So now I'm the co-chair of our AI committee, focusing on how can we expand it into other work areas around, sales, RFP, statement of works. How can we use it in HR and recruiting? And staying on top of AI, you can't stop. It's constantly moving. I saw a grid the other day of how AI has gone from flat and then it's just spiking with Claude and every version that comes out. Going to seminars like you have here, going to conferences. I went to Enterprise Connect last year, which is really a conference around contact centers, but the whole subject was AI. You couldn't get away from it. And governance, around how do we governance? I know Bill mentioned a little bit about governance. AI and the companies are so new that a lot of companies don't have governance around there. They don't realize that when you're out in ChatGPT and you're putting in data information, company information, that's going out there for a learning module. Make sure that you're using the company's approved modules. Make sure that your company has AI governance around there. Otherwise, you can be in a lot of legal issues later on. So make sure. Also, AI hallucinates. Never trust. It's kind of one of those trust but verify. So when you get data on there, make sure you're verifying it. Make sure you're following your company's policies. However, jump into it. Mandeep mentioned this. Jump into it. Play with it. See how it works. Build out those agents that will help you in different areas of your areas. My advice for everybody: don't be afraid of AI. It's not going anywhere. It's going to be here no matter what happens in the world, in the companies. I know there's bad things about AI too, but there's a lot of good things about AI. So get in there, play with it, test it. Don't be afraid of it.
Yeah. It is easy to get like, oh, geez, like you said, am I going to break something, or I'm going to do something wrong here. But yeah, that's great. Donna, any comments you'd like to make?
Well, ditto on a lot of things that have already been said, right? I think the first one to go gets the prize and lay in the land. But look, AI is, we've said this, it's an evolution of a multitude of tools, right? I've been selling AI-ish type of solutions for years and years and years, right? And now that it's just kind of the mainstream, right? It's before the computer was how large, and now it's this big, right? Everybody, I think, is using it, whether they know they are or not. And that includes my 87-year-old father, right? I mean, he's using it, even though he didn't. We had a great conversation on, do you know when you pull this up, AI's already sorted it for you, and it kind of blows his mind. But, from that scared tactic mentality, AI at its best, if you use it to remove the routine, and I call it boring stuff that you have to do every day, and get you to the stuff you're passionate about. There's some call center leaders here, right? We hire call center people because they're great and passionate about helping people, right? They're not necessarily jazzed about going to 15 different files to find the answer to a question, right? So AI is bringing and aggregating that data much more quickly. The question was, how did I get started? Well, I've been doing it for a long time. But as AI has surfaced in a big way and been made available to the general public, I thought, maybe I need to get a little more academic about what I know, because I think I know everything, right? So best way to prove you don't is take a course. So I took a couple courses at MIT to get the real grounding in the technical stuff, because I also work with AI every day, right? And I've got to at least prove I have a little street cred there. So I kind of picked apart the foundational layers of AI so that I could understand it. It's just the way my brain goes. And then to the point I think everybody was making, I wish Montessori school was an option for me, young Donna, right? Because I love to touch, feel, and manipulate and really get in there and understand it. It's the best way to learn. So from the start of the more academic learning, diving in, learning. I mean, you can't break anything as long as you don't misuse it, right? And just experiment. And the uses are exponential, So I think using them, testing how they do. And I think one thing we were joking internally in a call going, I can tell which one of my associates did not check their AI presentation to me before delivering it, right? You've got to put your own specialization on it. So I would say that's the caveat for everybody. If you take one thing out of this seminar, AI fun, but double check it. It's just like a teenager, they say they're going out in one outfit, and then sure enough, they get in the car and put another one on. So, but I think that's the biggest lesson for me is get in, start using it, have fun with it.
Great.
Yeah.
Great advice, great lessons learned. Keeping on top of all the features is going to be a challenge. And I think, as you all have stressed, consistency and just doing it, staying present with it, and it's a continual learning. It's not like it's an endpoint, it's a journey that, will continue on. So one of the things I always love whenever I get in conversations with people related to AI is I'd love to hear about unique or really creative use cases that they've used AI for. There's, I know some things it can be used for that, I'm not even aware of that I could use it for. So Bill, would love to hear, is there something that, you would consider unique or especially creative that you have used AI for?
Well, I'll tell you the two things I'm working on now, and you can decide if they'd be helpful. The first is I'm using AI to tell me what meetings not to attend. I get invited to so many where I'm there either for political reasons or just, FYI reasons. And, I'm not either driving the agenda or there are other people on my team on it. So I have built something now that evaluates, okay, you've got 68% of your time this week in calls and meetings. And I will basically say, if I had to cut 10% of that out, which would you suggest? Now, there's a whole human nature of then declining that invitation and trying to explain why. But I mean, at some point, AI to me is supposed to buy back capacity. If it doesn't buy back capacity, and part of that is organizations get meeting happy. And a lot of them,
we have that issue.
I'm not going toward those priorities I talked about over my morning, perspective. So that's one that I've actually got in development and I'm testing now. And the other one is, because we all touched on it, the ability to hyper personalize, persona-based messaging. So as a chief product officer, right, both internally and externally, I have to sell. You wouldn't think that, but that's what I'm doing, right? I'm selling. I want this budget for this product, and this AI use case is going to help with our test automation scripting and so on. And I have found that with AI, I'm able to, based on past content and comms, but also based on my best guess at personality profiles, have a message, but have 5 versions of it. The what doesn't change, the what's the same every time, but the how you message it, the tone you message it in, etc., has been good. So for me, my new sort of itch to scratch is the no meetings, process. And that's going actually kind of well. And again, the real issue will be cultural. Into this hyper personalization, persona-based selling that I have to do internally and outside. And those have been, even in their early stages, incredibly helpful.
Great. Yeah, very cool. Meetings are always a challenge at our organization, and I think most organizations. And I love that. I want to experiment with that, like to see what it might come up with.
Just be ready for that first reaction when you say, "I'm not going because my AI says I don't." Don't say that. Don't say that. Don't say that.
Right. Right, exactly. Any of our other panelists like to jump in here on something creative you've used it for?
I'll jump in. I'm sorry, someone else is going to do so. What I think is creative, I live in Florida, and as you know, we have a lot of visitors and lots of stuff going on. So I have used it on more than one occasion to find out what's going on in different parts of the city. Cities and what to avoid which beach to avoid, particularly during spring break season. So, just through digital newspapers, put it in and have it tell us, tell me what's going on in the city. It helps both in a positive way, find things that I would like to attend that I was not aware of, as well as in a negative ways, like avoid West Palm Beach today. You don't want to go there, and so forth. So it's kind of, as someone said, there is so much one can do with it, to make things easier, make life easier, and we just need to get out and do it. There was one you had asked, Lisa, in the previous segment, and I'll be very brief about advice. And one advice I would give, I didn't start like that, although, is get a paid version of any of the LLMs that you're using. It doesn't have to be the enterprise version. You probably get that from work, but get the $20 version. It's way better than the free version, and you're less apt to give up any personal data and so forth, also be faster. So that was one piece of advice I should have mentioned in the previous question.
Oh yeah, that's great. Thank you for that. Donna, any creative stuff you have used before?
I'm trying to sit on my hands a little bit because that's what we do, right? We tailor solutions. And I think that's an interesting topic, tailor-made, right? Because a lot of people say we can't tailor-make everything. Well, with AI, you really can. Mm-hmm. And that's the mind-blowing thing, I think, when we sit through with customers, because they'll say, well, let me talk to another customer that has used this. I said, I can let you talk to a ton of customers and they'll give you the feedback, but understand your problem is slightly unique and I can build it slightly unique just to solve that. So I don't want this to be a, call me. I can give you a lot of solutions that we can offer for people. But it personally, and I would say from a professional and team perspective, we're always selling, right? And we're always looking for the right way in which to have that conversation. And I talked a little bit about the persona building. One thing in working with my marketing team very recently is, traditionally you roll out a product, you get a focus group, blind studies, all this kind of stuff. You can literally do that with AI, right? So you can build those multiple personas. And I think it was it Bill saying context is Prince, prompting is king?
King.
Queen or princess, depending on what you want to say. But we are women's healthcare, right? IT. But bottom line is the better the prompt, right? And the context can be placed inside of the prompt, right? So to me, they're synonymous. And what we did is we want a focus group, and we built out multiple personas to the point where we said, look, this is a home engineer or, works at home woman, 3 children, one has physical disabilities. And I mean, we built it to the finite step of, they live in a neighborhood that has X, Y, and Z in this neighborhood. And we put that person alongside the COO of a small health plan, and then the CFO of another health. I mean, we built it out ad infinitum. And we had the agents, if you will, the persona agents, actually talk through it in a focus group and provide feedback from all of their vantage points. And that was a very long prompt with lots of context, right? Because we also fed into it the CFO's annual business report, right? The quarterly earnings of this public company, and got very rich. Again, you have to test it, right? But very rich feedback. And when you spend the right time, because AI is kind of junk in, junk out, if you put a junky prompt in there, you're going to get a junky reply, right?
Yeah.
So I would say that's one of the more complex things that we're doing to really get that feedback in a very different manner than just putting a couple people in a room with biases. We're actually, I guess, effectively building biases inside of the personas so that we get the right feedback on that.
Yeah, that whole area of prompts, and that was came up a couple times in the Q&A from our audience around challenges is how to do better prompts. And that was something, in the beginning that was so foreign for me, because you used to, doing Google or, Amazon, and you're shopping for something and you just put a couple keywords. And, with AI, the more detailed your prompts are, the better that you're going to get out of it. And so that's a big shift in how people have done searching in the past. Any other thoughts around that, around the whole idea of prompting?
A couple things, if I might add, is, when you are starting to get hallucinations or weird responses, start over. Do not try to get your agent to remember everything you said, 15 levels down or up from where you are. I would say start over. And the more context you can provide, the better. The more you can build a persona within your prompt, you are a CFO with 15 years experience at nonprofit and this size and this population, Medicare maybe. The more rich you build out the persona that's actually going to be provided the information and do the research, the better. So you're an industry expert on X, build all that into your prompt, because that's really what you're trying to search for, right? You're trying to get the consultant that Mandeep does for everybody for free through your prompting, and building it out and making it very robust. I think it's very important. And I don't think I said this, but how to get started, I would recommend everybody take a prompting class.
Yeah.
They're the best ways to get started in using AI.
Yeah, that's great.
And if I may add something to what Donna said, not only start over, start with a different LLM. So if you've been trying to do something, prompting Gemini or ChatGPT, and you're not quite getting it, or you're getting hallucination, start with a different LLM and compare the answers. So don't get addicted to one LLM. Try them all for your answers, and you'll find that different ones are different for different kind of analysis or research or questions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's great. I certainly have found that myself in my own experience. Guy, I have a feeling that you might have a creative example that you want to share.
I do. Thanks, Lisa. So first of all, I'm going to go back after this and ask my LLM what meetings I should not attend. So thanks, Bill.
Yeah, great. I think you're looking at you.
No, one of the things that I was working on was the implementation of agentic AI. And should we not do it? What is the savings of cost per contact if we do it? So I went out there and I asked Claude. I said, if I give you my cost per contact, how many contacts I have a month, what percentage will go to agentic AI? What is the cost savings? I was expecting a spreadsheet, an Excel spreadsheet. Instead, it created a self-contained HTML web-based page that allowed me to input all this information. And then it had two different columns comparing. So it listed each item it was looking at, and then a different comparison. On top of that, it built out graphs. Now, of course, my CFO loves graphs. So I was able just to, verify, make sure the data was right. Once I got that confirmed, then I was able to use those graphs and take it back to my CFO, and it was great. Again, don't underestimate what it can do for you. I tried it as a couple different LLMs. One of them just gave me a spreadsheet. One of them gave me text, but Claude actually gave me that self-contained HTML page. So it was really cool. And the other thing that I've done it for from the fun side is I had a 5-day road trip through New England, and I said, I want to visit these locations, give me some recommendations, hotels, and it spit out my whole itinerary, where I need to stay, how many miles between, how long I need to get there. So you can use it for fun as well.
Yes, that's amazing. Planning a trip to Norway and did the same thing. And it was so great. I'm like, it would have taken me forever to look, do that all on my own. There is a question in our chat here from one of our audience members, and it's, what advice would you provide around whether to buy an off-the-shelf product versus building out LLMs, GPT, etc. Any advice any of you have around that?
You know, I have one that I lead with all the time. Don't start with the technology. Start with the problem you're trying to solve. I think so many people make the mistake of, oh, I heard Claude's the best. Let's go. Well, Claude may not be the best at what your problem is you're trying to solve. So I would highly recommend, before I would spit out any recommendations, I would ask the question, what are you trying to solve, right? If you're just trying to do some of the fun stuff, well, this engine might be best for you. Look, some of these AI tools actually will do your programming for you. I personally have, like I said, those great engineers, they don't let me touch that stuff. I don't need anything like that. But so find a problem first and then find a solution. And I would, you know, define your use case. What are you trying to solve and what is the outcome you're trying to get? And personally, governance is one thing, right? What do you need? But if you are a buyer in a company, you must have a governance structure built before you do anything, even Copilot, right? I mean, I think somebody said employees have gotten in trouble with how they use this stuff unintentionally, right? But there is a lot of do's and don'ts to that. If you're using it in an HR perspective, remember junk in, junk out? Well, guess what? Bias in, bias out. There's a lot of things that you have to consider in governance in a true structure, multifaceted, right? With different people in the company, make sure your compliance people are there, your legal team, all that. You'll get a much more robust usage, and I think I would say comfort level. Cybersecurity is another one, right? Make sure you're looking at that kind of stuff, and I think it helps you manage the change effectively, right? And I'll just give two more, and then I'll be quiet, and you can all mute me if I don't mute myself. But teaching your teams to work with AI alongside you helps with the fear factor. Make it an assignment. Make it something that they have to use. For example, my lead gen team, they love it, right? They love AI because it helps them find the needle in the haystack. And then the last thing, again, is just solve the problem with the right solution. Don't buy the solution to solve your problem. And just, if I could echo that 5 times over, those would be my advices getting out of the gate.
Great. So interesting challenge that someone had put in our Q&A here was they struggle with having AI be their voice. And that, you know, they said it helps with writer's block, but we don't want it to seem robotic. Any thoughts on that?
I agree. I consider myself a good writer. And so I really struggle sometimes when AI tells me what to write and so forth. So I had used the word iteration before, or evaluation. It's like, use it to draft, but you can put it aside and just use it for what items did you want you to include in a particular email for different personas that Bill has mentioned, depending on who you're talking to and so forth. But you got to keep your human identity. What makes you unique, that has to be in the voice, whether it's an email or a PowerPoint, whatever you are presenting. So you have control over that. You know, you use AI as an assistant, as a guide, not as an overrider for what you're doing. So soften it with your words that you like to use. Throw it away maybe, and start over. But definitely keep the human, your personality show.
Yeah, and it's also, you should train your AI. Let it know what kind of style you like to write in, how your tone should come across, and train your AI so it learns you. And so when it's helping you draft those emails, it sounds more like you. And you also get rid of those hyphens that, you know, that's only ChatGPT and Claude use. So when someone sends an email with that, you can tell they're actually, you know, the email came from GPT or AI. So really what it is train your AI, so it knows you and your personality and what you like.
Bill, any other comments you'd like to add here? We're just wrapping up here on time. So if there's any final comments any of you would like to make, I've loved it today.
Well, I'll make just a quick closing comment. My greatest source of inspiration and learning is my community of colleagues and peers. We have a bunch of us who get together, and it does have some social element to it, but a lot of it is on this topic and what people are doing and what they've learned. So I know there's formal training. I wish I had more time. Maybe that's just a cop out, but I don't get to it much. But boy, if you can set up a little network, even internal to your organization, we implement AI at Short Test, so that inspires ideas. But my greatest source has been you all, right? People like you who are in my network and tell us what the cool things they're doing. And not even just for work, but also just to make themselves more efficient and effective. That is the greatest source I've gotten of some of these cool ideas and maybe not so cool ideas.
Yes, like we all learned how to not attend meetings from you.
I'll tell you, you got to keep it right.
Big takeaway there.
I'm like banished now.
But yes, at lunch and learn sessions and sharing, if you've created something unique, share it with the rest of your team, with the rest of your organization. They will reuse it. And as Donna said, the fear or the anxiety about it will evaporate and make them more comfortable experimenting and doing things.
All right, great. Well, as we conclude here today, I wanted to thank all of you for this great discussion today. Hopefully everyone got some great advice and takeaways. And at the end of the day, it's continuing conversations like this and sharing and all. I also wanted to take a moment to give a big shout out to MJ, who is a board member and our communications lead at WIT. And this webinar wouldn't have been possible without you, MJ. Thank you for always being a great partner to work with. Also wanted to thank our sponsors. Your support of WIT makes everything that we do possible. So thank you so much. And then lastly, thank you to all of you who have joined us today. I hope you're leaving this session with a few new ideas, a little bit greater curiosity, a little less fear maybe, and just confidence in how AI can support you in your work to make it more meaningful and in thoughtful ways. Before you log off today, please take a moment to complete our evaluation. MJ has shared the QR code here. Just takes a minute, couple questions here, but your feedback really helps us to shape future conversations and programs that you all feel are relevant, practical, and valuable. On behalf of Women in Healthcare IT, thank you all for being a part of Ask an Industry Leader. We are grateful for your engagement and for the important work that each of you are doing to help advance healthcare IT for the people and the organizations that we serve. Have a wonderful weekend ahead. Bye, everybody.